lack of food. Every time Africa is mentioned, we see pictures of frail children who are dying of starvation. Children who are lavished with the hunger and starvation. Those are the pictures that we see. And we can say that years of colonization, marginalization, cultural and social abuse, and injustices is what has made Africa lose her self-identity. And losing our culture and being introduced to a Western culture made us kind of lose our self-esteem, reducing us to a dependency community. We were introduced to something I like calling a human operating system, a system that dictates that we rely on the West for every answer. If we want an answer about health, we go to the West. On education, on how to govern ourselves, on food systems, we depend on the West to solve our problems. And they are using a system that is outside our own systems. We are not Africans by choice. So we look to the West for better farming methods, a farming system that has been an introduction of harmful chemicals to our farms, destroying our soils, at the same time poisoning our food. Because right now we have a chemical for everything. So, and then we go to the West for a description of civilization, because we are Africans and we believe in our culture. Then the West defines our culture as archaic or uncivilized people. We seek them out to rescue us from hunger, climate change, bitings, etc. Yet our people lived alongside the forest. We knew how to survive. We knew how to live. So when we are talking about foods and food systems, we ask ourselves, what is food? And I hope I'm still being heard. If I'm not being heard, Sarah, you alert me, okay? Am I being heard, or I'm alone in the room?
No, we can hear you, Daktari.
Okay.
We can hear you.
All right. When I go off, please, Sarah, alert me.
Proceed.
I can hear you.
Okay. So when you talk about food as an African, we ask ourselves, what is food? And the dictionary gives us the description or the definition of food as any nutritious substance that people or animals eat or drink, or that plants absorb in order to maintain life and growth. So if we take in something that is interfering with our health, then that is not food. It ceases to be food and it becomes poison. So food is the center of an African home, and we removed food from home and we put food in the market. In that, when we are talking about agriculture or agribusiness, we don't start with feeding ourselves. Our focus is so much on the market. So we created an industrial food system that undermines our food production at farm level. So the industrial food system allows for the production of processed food, anything goes, the chemicals, the fertilizer, and the food and the food industry also dictates the pharmaceutical industry, because they go together. Because whatever we are producing is harmful to our bodies. We've had nutritionists talking about us not allowed or not processed foods not being good for our health. And then on the other hand, that industry is thriving. We talk about how our soils have been destroyed, but then again, the food industry is thriving. So, and why is it thriving? Because we removed the focus of food from us, from the home, and we put it in the market. So what do? We grow food for the market, then we pass through the next market to buy food. Somebody tell me whether that makes sense, because that's what we do. And that is what we advertise. We advertise what is the best growing method, the biggest fruit for the market, not for consumption, not for our own consumption. So if you look at our African food system, the indigenous system, it was clearly defined what to eat and what to store. And it also defined the seed propagation. What to give a pregnant woman, what to give a young man, what an old man was eating, a recovering person. We knew, our people knew. When I say we, it's because I'm part of that system. I'm part of that community, that African community that has that knowledge. So the seasons were also very defined. Planting seasons versus what crop per season. Nowadays, when it rains, we are running for maize, to plant the maize. But yet, if, for example, I give an example of my own community, the Kikuyu community, the rains were defined by per season. When to plant the black beans, when to plant mawere, when to plant the sorghum, as per the rain. But nowadays, any sign of rain, we are running for maize. And we decided maize is our staple food. Our Africans knew everything about crop rotation. They knew once you plant maize, next time you're planting sorghum on that same plot. Next time you're planting cassava, you're planting potatoes. So the soils were balanced. And yet these are the same people who the West called uncivilized. When we move from the garden and we come to the house, we talk about food preparation. Our cookware is either aluminium or steel. And my question has always been over the years, what effect does these two metals have in our bodies? We are cooking in an aluminium sufuria. We are using a steel wire to clean the aluminium. And then we cook with that same sufuria. Our people knew that clay pots added some needed minerals to the food and also preserved the nutrients in the food. And yet we joined the West in calling them uncivilized. And I keep asking myself, who is uncivilized? Who has the knowledge? If, for example, today all of us were taught to line up like during COVID and have the doctors test the amount of metal in our blood, I don't think any one of us will pass. And when that metal is accumulated, I'm not a medical doctor, no. But when that metal is accumulated, what does it do to us? We're having all sorts of diseases, cancer, diabetes, and others that are actually named after people. Like the Parkinson. Parkinson was a person. So, in conclusion, I would like to say that when we talk about indigenous knowledge on food and food system, we mean food sustainability, a sustainable system. We need to secure ourselves. We need to have food in our stores. And why is the indigenous system sustainable? Because if we look at the past, there used to be droughts, but our people never starved. Nowadays it rains, but we are starving. Climate change is not all about destruction. We have water, we have rainwater because it's raining, but what are we doing about harvesting that water? When you talk about the ecosystem, the balancing our ecosystem, and you're talking about afforestation. I remember one time Wangari Maathai, she mentored me, and one time she just looked at me and asked me, When people are talking about afforestation, do they even pause to think what they are doing? I didn't know what she meant. When she told me it's not all about planting trees. And she told me God was not stupid when he set out a forest, an indigenous forest. And there is no way we can replace an indigenous forest with exotic species. And we tell ourselves that we are restoring the ecosystem. No, that is not right. So another thing we are talking about when we are talking about indigenous knowledge is the affordability of the agriculture system. Because we have the knowledge, whatever we need to do is affordable. We have our weeds, we have our animal droppings. And on the other hand, we have our expensive chemical fertilizers. When we decide to go organic, organic is cheap, it is affordable. And affordable in the sense that whatever we are growing, whatever we are eating, it's not destroying our bodies. It is not interfering with our health. So whatever we are spending on health, we save it for something else. The third thing is